Okay, still finding anything I can possibly do to avoid doing the tubular framework. So we've got some engine bells to build up. These parts here, these parts here. I'm not sure that I actually want to build this up because it's two different colours and I want to probably paint them separately. So may well not do that. But these can be built up and then we can understand if we need to do any filling and clean up. And we can also do the landing feet, which I've got somewhere there. So that includes springs and things. So I'd like to build those up and get a view on how I'm going to tackle painting those because they're a moving part. And one or two other bits and pieces. So we've got the feet for the pod, for example. So they're a different colour, so we'll paint those separately, but we can clean them all up. So I just want to work through these, and you know, we've got 4 of these sprues to work through. So we'll start by removing the bells, which are they're nicely done actually. All the moulding is nicely done. I've got no issues with the with this model at all, other than one or two sort of older style moulding, which means you get 1 or 2 fit issues. So if we start here, so this is P41 and the associated part to go on top of that is P40. Then we've got P25. And going with that is P24. Then P77, which is the large engine at the back. And P76 goes on the top of there. Now this piece also goes into the engine, so I want to have a look at the fit of that, clean it up, paint it at the same time. Yeah, so that's going to go into there. And yeah, it's going to sit on that joint, interestingly. Wonder if we could... No, probably not. Oh, so the fit of the part looks good. I don't think we're going to have any seam clean up on those parts there. need to make that sit, make that flat. I can see there's some raised plastic around the hole openings, which is stopping it sitting it flat. So we can make that fit. Yeah, and there's a bit of a gap on that one as well. Yeah, probably the same thing. We just need to sand that flush and we'll be okay. So yeah, no major concerns with that. Right, so these small parts here, yeah, these are interesting. Because really we want to be cleaning these up, and the sprue gates are on the outside and we need to be trimming them off to paint it. So then how do we paint it? Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to mount them on a cocktail stick with a bit of blue tack like that, so we can spray paint the outside, and then unless we can, it's not deep enough for us to mount it that way, and then we can build it all up and we paint the inside separately with a brush, because we may well want to do some charring or something like that with that anyway. So I do need to remove these, so we'll get rid of that. I need to remove them and clean them up. Right, okay. So again, lots and lots of clean up to do on these parts. So let's have a quick look at how we're going to tackle that. I'll get you in a bit closer for this. So we've got two parts, and first thing I'm going to do is trim it so that the nub's as small as possible. Then we're going to go in with a flat 400 grit, and your action on a round surface is to go into it and then raise away like that. There we go. And we're just going to do that back edge there, make sure that's nice and even. Okay, so now we can finish that. So I'm going to use a 1000 sponge. Go over each one of those. I mean, you've got 4 sprue gates there. There you go. So that's nice and round now. That's not taken much to get it where we want it. So there's a couple of ejector pins, and just to be sure we're nice and flush, I'm just going to use my flat sanding stick. Make sure there's nothing in the way there. So then when we look at this part, first thing is this is not flush. This mounting surface, the plastic's raising up as it reaches to the little holes there. So we're just going to take that down until I can't see any raised areas anymore. and then we can have a look at the fit. Yeah, and I can't see any light through that, so we've completely closed that gap. So we've taken an ill-fitting part and turned it into a nicely fitting part. And when I look on the inside, I can see a little bit of flashy plastic. So to deal with that, I need, where is it? So I'm just going to use an 800 stick just to run through there like so, and make sure there's no plastic flash. So this is a little bit spongy, but it will conform to the curve when I push it through. So the danger is when you do clean up like this, that you then end up with a lip of swarf, and then you've created a fit problem again. So I'm just going to go in with my knife, and I can see that there was some swarf created, and just scrape that off. So that should be nice and crisp. Just check the fit again. Yep, fits good. Okay, so now we've just got the clean up of this part. So we trim down the sprue gates till they're nearly flush but not quite. Same process as on the bottom section. Okay. So that all looks good to me. And there we go, that's our bell done. I think this, not sure where this one goes, to be honest. We will see. Well, this is the type A one. That's a type B. You can see there is a subtle difference. We can glue this in now. Okay, that should be more than enough glue to hold that all together. So, happy with that. That's ready for painting. It'll be the same process with that one. If there's anything we've got to do for fit, I will show you. And then I'll show you cleaning up those because they're going to be a bit fiddly. So probably we'll do that next. So I might as well just keep the camera running while we do that. So, thing with fiddly parts is you can be cleaning them up and then suddenly they flick out and you've lost them. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put them in a clamp. He says. There we go. And that means we can clean about 1/3 at a time. So it'd be helpful if I put the sprue gate sticking out so we could clean it, wouldn't it? There we go. So the sprue gate is there. So I'm just going to go in and gently, and not pressing because it'll shoot down into there. Reduce the nub down. There we go. That's nice and smooth. And now if we find the other sprue gate, which is there. There it is. See, told you it was fiddly. If I turn the camera off now, the next thing you'd see was this thing perfectly aligned. But I think it's, you know, some people view these things and think, oh, they can do these things and that they're almost superhuman at these abilities. And we're not. We just edit videos well. Come on. Right. I am going to switch this off in a minute because it's getting boring for me, so it must be getting boring for you. Come on. There must be a better way of doing this. People are going to be putting suggestions for better ways in the comments now, and that is absolutely fine. If you've got a better way of doing it than this, please tell me, but it's probably too late. I will get it into this clip though. You've seen how I'm doing it. Right, let's look at these landing feet now for the pods. It's a shame they didn't make them adjustable. You could do, you know. You could drill out these bolts and cut these out and make it adjustable if you wanted. It would be possible. I'm not going to. But yeah, it certainly would be possible. So again, we've got big sprue gates here, so I'm using my old nippers. We've got a lot of seam on this, really heavy seam on this in places. I'm going to start though on this back area where it is the lightest, and I think we can deal with most of it with a sanding sponge. So this is a 400 grit. And this is 800 grit sander. It is quite light, the seam on this side. It's much worse on the other side, as you'll see in a mo. And then I just need to crispen this up at this edge here. So just there, just take the knife, and then here we've got a little bit of soft moulding where the seam was, so I'm just scraping that out. Like so. Ended up scraping that as well. Then on the top, just to make sure that everything fits okay, we just take that sprue gate back, get the part flat. Then we're on this part here, and we've got more seam. The seam is heavier on this side, so take that back. Want to make sure there's nothing foul in that. No. Okay, so here, rather than sanding, what we're going to do is we're going to scrape. And I'm using the back of the knife because I've got a lot of heavy seam, and this knife blade is a fair bit thicker than my scrapers, and so it's just that little bit more robust. So what I do is I use the middle of the knife blade where it's thicker for big tasks, and then move to the end where it's a bit thinner, where I want to get a little bit more surgical. And we've got another sprue gate here, so there I need to sand. That gives us a nice gentle round curve, and then we're back to scraping underneath. We've got misaligned moulding at this point, so there's quite a bit of work to just take that back and even it up. Using the blade to make sure we've got a nice crisp cut out at this V end here, and then once again we're scraping. We don't want any visible seam at all. And there we go, that is job done on that. That looks good. It needs quite a bit of clean up one way or another, but that looks okay to me. It's a little bit rough on that corner, so I'm just going to smooth that out a bit. A little bit of rough moulding in places every now and then. Nothing we can't sort. So happy with that. So that's how we're going to tackle those. Right, we've got several little assemblies in the foot that we've got to deal with. So let's start with the bottom. So we've got two sprue gates to trim off. They're quite large, so again, use my old nippers. And we can use our flat there to just sort that out. Okay, then we need to clean up this part that it goes into, and I mean, look at the size of the sprue gates on that, you know, it's like the size of my little finger. And there's 4 of them, I forgot to mention that. Okay, and then we can level those up, got some sync there which we're leveling up at the same time. You'll see I'm trying to use the full length of the sander, and that means that ultimately I have less passes needed to do it. Right, let's just test fit that and see what that does for us. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're going to have some filling to do because that needs to be completely solid. We don't want any witness of gaps. So we need a different glue to tackle that. We want something a little bit thicker. So I'm going to use this precision plastic glue, which is sort of equivalent of Revell's contactor glue. And we can start by putting some glue into these holes here. Looks like that needs opening up, so let me just get I have a little piece of wire that I keep just for these jobs. There we go, we should be good now. Let me just put that back. It's hung on a bit of blue tack on my lamp, so it's always to hand. There we go, and we're flowing. Okay, and do each of those 4 edges. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any real contact points there, so I'm worried that it'll be a bit flimsy when we're filling. So if we put glue onto the surface now, it should make it a bit more rigid, but also it might do some of the gap filling for us as well. Alright, I can get it the right way around. It does fit just one way really. There we go. To be careful we don't get glue where we don't want it. Okay. So we can put that to one side. We can't do any significant build up on that though, because it'll just be too delicate. While that's drying, we can clean up the other parts and we can do a test assembly and see what else we need to do. We've got 2 different colours to paint here as well. So we've got grey and aluminium on here. This will be grey, but this shaft here, this thin shaft, is aluminium. So we need to think about that. So I'll put that to one side, and I'm just going to clean my glue up. So I've got a drip there, take that off. Put that to one side because I know I've got another 3 of these to make, so we'll be using that. So let's have a look at this part next. So this is part of a 2-part assembly, and we've got huge sprue gates here and here that we've got to get rid of. So let's start by nipping those out. Okay, so that's the majority of the cleanup work, plastic gone. Let's start by evening this out. So it's nice and level now. On this part, which has two lips on, this is the part that mounts into the main shoulder. So what's important is we're going to have a moving shaft in here, so we need to make sure there's nothing interfering with that. So I'm just going to get my round file and just make sure that's nice and clear. There was a little bit of plastic in there, definitely. Okay, now with my knife I'm trimming back the sprue gate so it's flush with the rest of the plastic. Because this is getting glued in, it doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to be functional. Just be careful not to accidentally remove our pin. There we go. And then, just for completeness, we'll just make sure it's nice and level. That's all we're after there. Okay. And on this part we've got seam, so we need to just take the seam back on the little bars there. So that's easily done with the seam scraper, or indeed the back of your knife. Hi, hope you're enjoying the video. I put a lot of effort into making these videos, putting them together, recording them, editing. It takes up so much time. I would really love it if you could just hit that like button for me. It will take you a fraction of a second and it costs you nothing, and it means so much to me and the channel, and will help other people who might enjoy this video find it. You done it? Thank you. Don't forget to do the inside as well. That's a little bit more tricky and difficult to see. Fortunately the seam is nice and light. Okay. Okay, and then we've got this horrible moulding on the inside base. Can you see that line there? That's a huge step where it's not flat. It's not showing up too well on camera. There you go. That's a huge step that really should be completely flat. They could have reduced that in the moulding process, I'm fairly sure. But it's quite a big job to get that out, so we're going to go in with a file and take as much back as we can as quickly as we can. So it's worse, the closer you get to the centre, the worse it gets. So we don't have to get this totally flat. All we have to do is feather the step back in so it looks smooth and there's no step. Doesn't matter if the thing's totally flat or not. What we're trying to give you the feeling that it is totally flat, smooth, single plate. That's the idea. So that's that side done. There we go, that looks a lot better. But now we've got to even all of that up. So this is where these little photo etch sanders come in. Let me just clean that one up a little bit. Might need to put some, yeah, I think we're going to need to put some fresh sanding tape on that. So it's not a particularly quick job, but it's also not a difficult job. But you do have to get rid of all of this adhesive. You rub it with your finger, it warms up a little bit, and then you can just take it off. There we go. So we need to put some new adhesive sanding on there. A big pack of this stuff. So you've just got to find the one you want. So there we go. I'll just get my knife and score around it. And do the edge there. And then actually, I follow that with my scissors. Take off the backing. And there you go, we're back up and running, and it's that quick. So these are really good. These are Infernal, I'm not sure what they're called, if it's zebra sanders or something like that. But they're really handy for tasks like this, and this is quite a wide one. They go down to 2mm, and then there's also triangular ones as well. You can see I've recently put new material on there as well. But the 5mm wide one, there's a bigger one. Biggest one is what, 10mm. That'd be too big for this job. That just quickly tidies that up, and then we can go in with a lesser grit. I'll use this triangular one and just make it a little smoother. Let's get you in a bit closer. I zoomed you out so you could see me messing around with sanding sheets. There we go. So that looks tons better than I compare it to that one. And when we put paint over it, it should look the part. So I'll tidy that one up off camera because it's exactly the same. Then we'll have a look at sticking them together. Okay, with these two parts cleaned up, we can just test fit. So there are some tiny pins, and I can see a light through there. So the pins are actually causing us to not have a flush fit. So that also looks a little untidy, so I'm just going to make sure that's nice and level. You can see the little rectangular pin holes there that I've just filled with sanding dust. So that's the female half. So on the male half, we're going to sand those pins down. Quite often you find, because they're not, the pins will actually be slightly triangular shaped and they get wider towards the bottom. That's why you get they don't fit, because the pin goes in okay at the top, but as you get lower down it fouls, and that's why it doesn't fit close. Right, yeah, so I now have perfectly closed fit all the way around, but I've got nothing to align it with, so I've got to do that by eye. Okay, so this makes it a little bit more tricky, but it's very doable. So we get all the surfaces covered in liquid glue. Now that's going to sink in. You can see it's already flashed off. When we do a second pass, that will sit on top because it's already tacky and saturated in the glue, so it will just sit on top, and it gives you time then to place your part. Like so. Come on. Every time I take my finger off it moves. And the critical point here is that we have a moving component that goes down the centre, so it all has to be perfectly aligned. I'm just going to test that goes through. Yes, it does, so we're good. Managed to move it again. This plastic doesn't seem to take glue particularly well. It's a little harder than the white plastic in the rest of the kit. So I'm just going to capillary in more glue, keeping it closed with my hand while we do that. I think we'll clamp the top there. Actually going to pinch that first, because when I put a clamp on, that opened up. Then we'll clamp it nice and tight there, and that stopped moving. And just one last check that passes through okay. Yep, it does. Okay, we can leave that to dry now. Okay, so glue will be dry on this now, or dry enough for handling at least. So yeah, we do need to go around and fill all the way around this. So I'll have to build the other three first, and we'll do that all in one go. Our next job is these little plates which go in either side of there with the detail facing out. So I think with cleanup, there's just one sprue gate on this, and I think we can probably easily just trim that back, and let's make sure that fits. So the fit there is tight. Not sure I'm going to get it out again. There we go. I do have an ejector pin mark right there. Let's see. If we can sand it out. No, I'm going to have to fill that as well. Have I got one on the other side? Yeah, that's a real pain, isn't it? So we need to do some filling, but for now we can test fit. Okay, so that goes in, that looks okay. I think that's probably a job for Mr. Surfacer for those. Right, and then we've got this pin that plops into there like that and doesn't get glued, so that has to move. It's quite slack though. So what we'll do is we'll fit it and then glue that into place. Right, so trim the sprue gate flush. Sand that nice and flush. Gonna actually drop to a 600 so that I get a better finish. So I'll have to paint this as a separate component and then assemble it. And that pops into there like so. And then we've got this little part here which needs an awful lot more work. So we start by getting rid of the seam on top of the bolt heads there. Then I'm going to go in and level the part. That looks a lot better. Then we've got to deal with the seam on the outside edges. And we've got the sprue gate on this side to deal with. So you can see multiple tools required just to get this where we want it. So every now and then I show you a section of sort of sanding on one of my videos, because a lot of the time I go, right, I'll clean this up off camera and stuff, but occasionally, just for the more beginners amongst you, I like to show a bit more of the process so you can understand what we're doing. So the different tools we're using and the process. Okay, that part looks a lot better already. There is some flash though in here, so just take that back with our knife and carefully take that out. Doesn't seem to be a problem on this side though. And this attaches into that part like so, just clips in theory. There we go. So that's our linkage made up. So we will have to paint those parts separately. And then that links onto here. There we go, like so. So that all moves. And then we've got that passing through and gluing into there, like so. I think, and then it shows the spring going on top. I want to get a shoulder and see what that all looks like. So with this passed through and the spring goes on there, and then that passes through into that hole, so the spring is on the inside, that glues into there. Well, I don't see how that works. There's no... What's the point of the spring? That's not springing at all, that's just fixed into place. I don't get that. I need to have a look at this. But that looks too tall as it currently is. So I'm going to have a play. I'll do that off camera and then I'll come back to you. So there's actually a surprisingly small amount of travel on the spring. I mean, you're moving about that far. We don't need to worry too much about this, but I don't want it snagging on the spring. So I'm just going to take that sprue gate back, roughly. That'll do. We do need to take the seam off from here, but this end piece, it's actually rectangular. You can see the hole is rectangular, so we have to put it in before we mount the rest of the equipment and make sure that we know which way round we are when we it's upside down when we connect it, because you need those pins to be in the right direction. You need the joining bits to be in the right place, and you need it to all orientate correctly when you mount it on here. Like so. So without the spring on, you can actually get this to sit quite nicely, and I'm wondering whether the spring is something we don't want. I don't know. There is quite a bit of play in there, but you'd have to put some weight on it. As soon as you put that spring in, you're almost at full extension. And I think it looks a little like it's sitting a bit high. So like that, I don't think that looks... It looks heavy. You want it a bit longer than that. Maybe that long. Yeah, I don't know whether we might ditch the springs and set a length, because when that's full out, that looks too high to me. When that's fully out, I think that's sitting too high. So because they're different colours and we get to paint it separately, I think what we're going to do is we'll get it all painted up and ready for final assembly, because I'd like to see what that does to the height of the pod off the ground as well. And then we might use the spring, we might not. So I think I have shown you everything. You don't need to see me doing the large engine bell because it's the same as the smaller ones. So I've got quite a lot of cleanup work to do now, so I'm going to do that all off camera, and then I'll come back to you probably when we've got to look at the framework. And one thing when you've built the large engine bell up is you have to plop this in, and I'm not going to fit this until after we've done painting, but you can see the gap, and the gap is being caused by the fact that this is square and that is fluted. So we do need to put a little chamfer on so that it fits better and you don't have a gap. It's going to be very difficult to put filler in there. We don't really want to do that. So just putting a chamfer on hopefully will give us a much better fit and reduce the gap, or possibly even, if we're lucky, remove the gap. And there you go, you can see it's a quick job to do. Let's just see what that does for us. That was almost central. Well, that's a lot better. That makes such a difference. So put your chamfer on so you've got a nice fit. I'd be tempted to glue it, but I'm not sure that it's perfectly aligned, so we're not going to. So those are those parts cleaned up. So that was the only thing of note on the bell, other than there is a little seam that goes around this edge here on the upper part. So it's worth just going around with a sponge and softening that up a little bit. Otherwise, cleanup was the same as with the other parts. The actual join seam gets hidden by this part, so quite a nicely engineered solution they've done there. Right then, I've got all the other three to make up, so I'm going to focus on lots of cleanup now.